Coming up on this week's edition of the Home Theater News Review Podcast, we are stepping into the holiday season with some big news stories. We're going to talk about some of the recent news surrounding Sound United's future under the stewardship of Massimo. I have two takes to share with you from industry sources. We're also going to talk about Auro's acquisition and why it's so important, something you definitely want to hear. Macintosh also recently in the news because it was purchased by Bose, unveils a streaming integrated amp that blends classic design with cutting-edge tech. We'll also take a closer look at Amazon's first ever mini LED TVs, which aim to shake up the mid-range market, and Apple's intriguing plans for a smart home ecosystem that might kick off with a new HomePod speaker. That's kind of interesting. And I have some information for you coming out of Scenic Labs and a new accessory for bias lighting kit owners of Sony Bravia TVs that you are definitely going to want to hear. Folks, today is December 10th, 2024. My name is Todd Anderson, your host right here on HTNR and editor at the Home Theater Forum, avnirvana.com. This episode of HTNR is brought to you by Texas Hi-Fi, a new online destination for your home theater and hi-fi needs, launching in early 2025. To celebrate its debut, the folks at Texas Hi-Fi are kicking off a December sale you won't want to miss. Get 50% off Dirac Live room correction and bass control licenses. These are available for select Denon and Marantz AVRs, as well as for Mac and PC users running home theater or media setups. That's a crazy good deal that delivers significant savings to you. Visit TexasHiFi.com to learn more about this limited time offer and stay tuned for their grand launch. Look for them to feature top brands like JVC, Sony, Emotiva, Martin Logan, and so many more, along with advantages like price matching and free shipping. Again, that's TexasHiFi.com, and I'll drop a link to them down in the description and show notes. And I know a few of you out there have been attempting to contact Texas Hi-Fi to take advantage of this offer and have been unable to get a response. So I am working on that, trying to figure out what's going on. They may have their hands full at the moment, and hopefully they're going to surface soon. But someone asked me, yes, they are definitely legit. I have been talking to them, so we will get that worked out. But go pay them a visit at TexasHiFi.com. And to quickly answer a question asked by longtime listener Welder Fixer, he dropped a few comments about our last episode on YouTube. He asked specifically about the Criterion Collection and what it's all about. So basically, the Criterion Collection is a curated series of modern and classic movie titles that have some sort of cultural or historical or artistic significance. They're very picky about the titles that they bring into their collection. The company is known for high quality restorations. Oftentimes their releases are rare or hard to find titles, and they typically drop with special features. We're talking about directors' commentaries, interviews, behind the scenes content, that sort of stuff. And collectors will tell you that these releases have serious attention to detail, from the way the film is restored right down to the packaging of the discs. So you're really getting a premium product with these Criterion releases, but fortunately, also, you have to pay a premium price. Most of these discs typically land in that $25 to $35 range, maybe a little bit more upon release. So if you're looking for budget pricing, you're going to need to pay attention to sales, which do happen from time to time at Criterion, or just go hunt for titles on eBay. I did a quick search before this show this morning, and there were plenty of Blu-ray titles on there that could be found for $20 or less. A couple had buy it now prices right around $10.99. Anyhow, Welder, that's the skinny on Criterion. I hope I answered your question. You should go check out their website and give the catalog a look. I own a few titles. One of my favorites, The Game. It's on Blu-ray. It is just a delicious feast for the eyes. A really great release. So that might be one that you should give a look. And folks, we are quickly approaching the end of 2024. I can't even believe that I'm saying it, but first I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been listening, folks that have sent me emails or dropped comments in the comments section, left reviews, all that sort of stuff. Really appreciate it. This might be the last episode of the year. Starting to come in on these last few weeks of 2024 on fumes, and I think I might need a little bit of a breather. Of course, we have CES coming around at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to be attending CES this year. My eyes are set on ISE over in Barcelona at the beginning of February. So that's where my attention will be turning. But I will be covering CES and any announcements and news from afar. And of course, we'll have an HTNR episode talking about a lot of that kind of stuff. And we might have some interesting news dropping near the end of this year. If we do, I'll get up a special episode and we will definitely talk about it. All right, and let's set the dial of our time machine to November 30th, 1977, just to capture a little bit of that Christmas holiday spirit. We find ourselves watching Bing Crosby's Merry Old Christmas special on CBS right here in the United States. And on this evening, we're treated to an unusual duet between the iconic Crosby and a rock and roll artist known for just pushing all sorts of boundaries, none other than Mr. David Bowie. And they sang a medley of The Little Drummer Boy and Peace on Earth. Here, let's give this a listen.
Can it be years from now, perhaps we'll see our finest day of glory.
And this was not a live event. In fact, events leading up to this broadcast make the duet a really unique moment in history. It actually was recorded a few months earlier on September 11th, 1977 at ATV Elstree Studios in London. And just in a terrible twist of fate, Bing Crosby passed away just a handful of weeks later on October 14th, 1977. Now, the premise of the show was basically the Crosby family traveling to England to discover their family's history and roots through music and skits. It first aired in the United States, and then it was rebroadcast in the UK on Christmas Eve of that same year. If you want to watch the segment with Crosby and Bowie in full, including some banter between the two, you can find it on Bing Crosby's official YouTube channel. I'll drop a link in the show notes below. Well, the last few weeks have been a tad slow on the product release front, though we do have a few things to cover on today's show. But we've had some very interesting industry news happenings involving big names in the audio business. I'm talking about Sound United and its brands like Denon and Marantz, Bowers and Wilkins, and Polk Audio, just to name a few just really iconic brands. We're going to dig into that. We've also had some major news coming out of Auro 3D with their recent acquisition. And while Auro 3D has been one of the smaller players in immersive audio here in the United States to date, that sale could prove to be super important in the very near future. We're going to talk about why. But first, I'd like to mention that Harman's Jim Garrett joined us on AV Nirvana Live this past Friday night to talk shop about JBL's modern audio receivers and Stage 2 speakers. We talked extensively about the backstory behind the new lines, including what's happening in the middle market of audio products and what JBL's research discovered about Gen Z and millennial buyers. We also talked about the launch of those lines and that cringe collection of sizzle videos that were, I guess you could say, misplaced when they were sent out to media, along with info about the new receivers and speakers at launch. Jim had some interesting comments and backstory on that, and then dove into the products themselves, and he He gave us a really strong overview of design elements, why those elements were chosen, how they fit into the market research behind the products. So definitely go and check it out. A link is right down in the show notes. And here's just a little teaser. Before the year ends, I believe Magnetar is going to join us on AV Nirvana Live, and hopefully we'll have a date and time for that nailed down this week. Okay. So on to the news, and we're going to kick things off with what's happening in the land of Auro 3D. Now, just a little background for those of you out there who may not be all that familiar with Auro 3D. Auro is an immersive audio technology. Many would say it was the first of its kind to market. It uses a traditional multi-channel speaker layout. So that's your front three, side surrounds, maybe rear surrounds, along with height channels that are mounted at the top of a room's walls in the front and rear of the room. And in some cases, depending on ceiling height, because you do need some height to actually pull this off, there is a single centrally mounted ceiling channel. Some people call it the Voice of God channel. That's also used in the setup, but that channel is not essential to playback. Now, the codec recreates a natural height layer of sound that effectively reproduces the natural sound reflections that our ears hear and our brain interprets out in real world situations. It's different from object-oriented codecs like Dolby Atmos and DTS:X in that regard. And frankly, from my perspective, the Auro 3D demos that I've heard in the past and also experienced here in my own home theater room, I have to say they are the best sounding, most realistic 3D audio demos out there. Now, for reasons we're going to gloss over, Dolby used its market muscle to essentially outflank Auro after it was publicly revealed, and pretty much has dominated the immersive audio segment here in the United States and worldwide. And for the most part, Auro content has been limited to releases in Europe, whether that's movies or music. Though you can find some Auro 3D encoded Blu-ray albums here in the US, specifically on Amazon. But for the most part, Auro has remained a niche technology. Dolby has, to this point, successfully guarded the United States market. Now, this isn't to say Auro has been a failure. It has not. Auro's upmixing engine, it's called Auromatic, can be found on higher end receivers and processor offerings. Many, including myself, prefer using Auromatic to upmix both movies and music, even movies natively encoded in Atmos, just because it sounds better. Is that a personal preference? Well, definitely it is, but for me, the best, most natural sounding upmixes are supplied by Auromatic in my home theater room, and that is the upmixer that I reach for any non-Atmos or DTS:X encoded content. But like I said, that's a sentiment that is shared by a lot of folks out there in the industry, and if you have access to it on your own gear, try it out, see what you think. Now, 2 years ago, Auro declared bankruptcy. The company was rescued by a private equity firm called Saffelberg Investments. It was renamed New Auro, which is kind of a confusing name. I would have preferred them just leave it Auro or Auro 3D, but it was renamed New Auro for the duration of the ownership under Saffelberg Investments. And basically, they just continued to innovate and mature technologies focused on audio and streaming and soundbars. Of course, Auro 3D and movie releases continued to exist, and they still are putting out movies that are encoded in Auro 3D. Auro's presence, though, in car audio and phones also continued to exist. And you may or may not know this, but Auro audio can be found in some high-end auto brands like Porsche. So they have a much larger market presence than most realize. But and still were looking for a big industry break that would help them scale within home cinema, streaming, gaming, soundbars, and associated gear. So post-bankruptcy, Safelberg gave Auro the ability to speed up development, concentrate on development internally with some of these core technologies that we've been talking about. And we've seen the results. Last year, the streaming technology Auro CX was released. And last week, it was announced that Gerdina, that is a massive international audio-focused company with worldwide distribution channels, they reached out and purchased new Auro, and they've renamed it Gerdynamics. It's spelled Goer. So you want to say goer, but it's actually pronounced Gerdynamics. And the leadership from new Auro has been brought aboard to guide the ship into the future. So that alone is really great news because there's some really nice folks over at Auro. This past Friday, I had an hours-long virtual sit-down interview with CEO Rudy Van Dupen just to get a sense of what all of this means. And suffice to say, he is absolutely thrilled at the prospects of what this deal means for Auro 3D and its future relevancy. First off, Gerdina has brands such as Dyne Audio, Liberatone, and XEO, which, by the way, has a seriously cool 3D audio chair in development. You should go and check that out. Just look up XEO, the letters XEO, and see what they have in development. Looks very cool. So Gerdina has those brands in its portfolio. It also has super deep relationships in the industry on a global scale, such as Gertech, a sister brand, and that's heavily involved with Apple and VR gaming. And Van Dupen says they now have the international partner they needed to scale Auro 3D while facing down other big players like Dolby. They now have access to rich relationships in the audio and gaming industries, and Auro is absolutely thrilled. In many ways, it sounds as if a door has been opened and Auro is ready to charge forward with the technologies it's been incubating and maturing. A few things to note. Branding around Auro 3D will continue to be Auro 3D, and that's despite the company's new name, which again is Gerdynamics. And while this likely won't happen right away, Auro 3D could ultimately become a recognizable stamp in the world of gaming. Also, don't be surprised to see Auro CX make a big splash in the world of streaming. I mean, we've been talking about this for about a year. These things take time to develop, but look, I mean, this very well could be ready for prime time now. It can deliver high resolution, immersive 3D audio efficiently, particularly for streaming and broadcast applications. It's scalable, allowing a single bit stream to encompass multiple audio resolutions from lossless to lossy, and various sample rates from 48 kilohertz to 96 kilohertz, all the way up to 192 kilohertz, enabling decoders to extract the optimal version based on device capabilities. It's just so slick. I love that. And unlike some formats that derive immersive audio objects from a 7.1 bass mix, potentially compromising really the audio quality of what you're hearing, Auro CX embeds those objects within a 13.1 immersive mix, preserving the integrity of height channels. Additionally, Auro CX supports features like dialogue enhancement, multiple language tracks, and interactive audio, which basically is just enhancing the personalization and accessibility for users. And possibly most important, it needs less storage. So on the streaming platform side of things, they can store these files with smaller amounts of storage, which is a really big deal because that's expensive. And Auro CX could definitely help lower costs. So this is going to be very, very interesting to watch. Auro is also going to make a push to get into gear with lower prices. Right now, it's, as I mentioned, only really available on expensive top-end gear. We're talking about the big brands like Trinov and Storm Audio. Those are big in the CI segment, but also brands like Denon and Marantz, Pioneer Elite, and Onkyo Integra. They offer Auro 3D on their very top models, which aren't cheap. And I asked Van Dupen about that, explaining that, from the outside, the perception has been that licensing fees on Auro's side of the equation are pushing that product into the higher end range. And I say that because Auro began as a relatively expensive add-on, and now we have it sitting mainly on the top end of market gear. And he says that Auro's fees are actually extremely competitive, if not less than the competition, and that it's not a barrier to getting Auro on less expensive gear. So taking his word at face value, it's likely been used as a carrot that manufacturers are dangling to get buyers to pay just a little bit more for higher levels of functionality. Auro wants that to change, and I really hope it does, because the Auro engine is something that everyone can and should benefit from. Also, Van Duppen says their technology is ready to be embedded in soundbars. All the baking is done. They're ready to bake it into the products. And with the acquisition, he believes the market connections are going to just open the floodgates. So this sale isn't a shock to anyone. It's the end result of a 2-year post-bankruptcy roadmap that was laid down and made possible by the private equity group that stepped in to support Auro's vision. They drew up the roadmap to make Auro this attractive buy for a large audio-focused entity. And for now, it's looking like mission accomplished. It's hard for us on the outside not to view the last 8 years or so kind of as a race, with Dolby appearing to be a clear victor. But Auro, folks, you have to sit back and really look at what they've been doing. They've spent that time honing and crafting technologies to address current market decisions. We're talking about soundbars and streaming, which just become bigger and bigger and bigger. And people are looking now to high quality in those segments. So this is super, super interesting. I'll continue to be bullish on the prospects of Auro to make its mark in the market, and I hope they succeed, because their approach, especially when it comes to immersive audio and streaming, could be hugely relevant to enthusiasts who value lossless quality. Okay, let's pivot a bit and shift our attention to what's happening at Sound United. This is another complicated and potentially industry-shifting situation that was recently exacerbated by a misinterpretation of a call with investors. I've had an opportunity to talk at length with several different credible sources, and what I have for you is a little bit of what's actually happening on the inside of Sound United at the moment, and a perspective of one of the reasons why this is happening from a contact that operates outside of Sound United, but still within the AV industry. So here's the backstory. Masimo, it's a publicly traded medical tech company. They purchased Sound United from a private equity firm about 2 years ago for a very large sum of money. And the marriage has been, I would say, a bit controversial with investors, as Sound United as a business doesn't naturally line up with Masimo's medical-facing mission. Since then, Masimo's stock has been under pressure, and Sound United's earnings have been facing some challenges. Most recently, there was a leadership change on the company's board, and it's looking like Masimo is going to sever ties with Sound United. Of course, the internet rumor mill is just a brutal place, and I don't need to explain that to you. We all know that. And speculation exploded over the last month based on a piece that was published by an Australian outlet called News Channel. And I have to be totally honest, I don't know if News Channel is a credible source or not. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter, because they wrote it, they put it on the internet, and it got out into the ether, and people started picking up on it. The suggestion in the article was Sound United's operations could be discontinued as early as next year. The report cited comments from Masimo's CFO, Micah Young, referencing the company's strategic review process and the potential classification of Sound United as a discontinued operation. And the Australian outlet, along with 2 German news sources that appeared to base their article assumptions off of News Channel's misinterpretation, just set off alarm bells all over the net. I mean, you can go on Reddit and read it yourself. People are panicking, leading to this notion that we could literally see doors locked, windows shuttered at some of the segment's most iconic brands. But let's just clear the air. The term discontinued operation is actually a financial classification. This is not a death sentence. It essentially is an accounting tool used to help investors focus on Massimo's core healthcare business. It doesn't mean the brands are shutting down, nor does it impact day-to-day operations. On the inside of Sound United, I've been told it sounds like plans have been laid for normal 2025. I've been told that budgets are finalized for the year and Sound United's brands are moving forward with R&D and product rollouts. In other words, the inside is viewing the situation differently than the internet rumor machine. Now, what's true is that something will more than likely happen with Sound United. I'm told the options are still being evaluated, so nothing is set in stone right now. They're either going to be sold, they could possibly be retained, or they could be spun off into their own public entity. They're looking at all the options. They're trying to figure out what is best for the brand portfolio. And right now, internally, they are saying that the desire is to keep all of the companies in the same portfolio. So piecemeal sell-offs aren't on the table at the moment. But there's more to this story, and it's really a story of what's happening as a whole in the segment of mid-range traditional stereo and home theater gear. As we all know, sales numbers are down. It appears demand could be down, and the segment is just retracting. Now, I had an interesting discussion with someone that operates outside of Massimo and Sound United, more on the consumer and distribution side of the equation. They asked to remain anonymous, and I'm going to respect that. But they feel a lot of the problem lies in a lack of support of traditional brick and mortar dealers, but also a change in how companies like Sound United interact with consumers. A very interesting take. And my takeaway from my discussion is that there's frustration, basically, first and foremost, with internet pricing models that are so aggressive. Physical retail locations that buy stock and hold stock simply can't afford to compete with those pricing sale options that people are given on the internet. So right there, that kind of pricing keeps foot traffic out of stores and squarely online. I'm also told that staff cutbacks on marketing teams that interact with consumers through in-person events. Think along the lines of a roadshow type scenario. Well, they have been cut back or outright eliminated. So again, it's a situation where consumers aren't coming into contact with new products and technologies. Now, the perspective of this source is that this is damaging the viability of the segment, all at the immediacy of making sales, even if those are super cheap, low-priced internet sales. And to their point, we've seen some sale pricing over the past month, with some models knocking off anywhere from $400 to $1,500 off MSRP. That's great for us, the internet shopper. Not so great for businesses that want to move products through traditional store settings, right? I guess the question is this a chicken or the egg scenario? Are these observations or complaints a reaction to market conditions that would exist regardless? Or is the source correct that the willingness to divest in consumer outreach while also engaging in pricing that's untenable for traditional walk-in retail locations actually damaging the market? It's a great question, but at the same time, I have to say, I do agree that in-person interaction and education is just so important. In fact, I've talked about this in the past with various folks in the industry, but I think that manufacturers should take advantage of empty retail spaces in high-density population areas by opening month-long pop-up shops, put them in areas where Gen Zers and millennials live, host happy hours or social events in them, set up a few listening rooms, creating an environment that folks will want to share on social media, have hours that run in the evening, not during the day. I know here in the Baltimore, Washington, DC metro area, there are plenty of places where pop-up shops like that could thrive, and it would be easy because these shops would be positioned by things like coffee shops and restaurants and bars and places that have natural high volume foot traffic. There's so many Gen Zers and millennials living in this particular region. Not tapping that is just such a mistake. And, if you open these pop-up shops and you made them enticing to visit or a cool place to visit, they would be filled with young professionals that are looking to experience maybe something that they didn't know was possible, but also something that they may ultimately want to buy. So anyway, I'm telling you all of this just to give you a little bit of insight into some of the chatter I'm hearing offline. And I believe that a few things are going to happen. Number one, I think Sound United will more than likely have a new home in 2025. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's purchased by a large entity like Samsung, which already owns Harman. I also believe that these brands will be sold as a unit, though I'm not convinced all of Sound United's brands will stay in the portfolio. We could ultimately see one or two sold off. I've not heard that, but I think all of them will ultimately survive. I've been given no indication as to when a decision will be made, but if you're an owner, rest assured the brands aren't going to just disappear on January 1. That's not going to happen. Internally, these companies are going to be operating for 2025. At least that's what they're telling me. They are set to move forward. So you are not going to lose support for your products. Okay. That's important to keep in mind. These companies are still very healthy despite lower sales. Everybody in the segment is experiencing lower sales. So, great brands, great traditions, lots of amazing technologies. I think they're going to be around for the long haul. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some product news. Scenic Labs, they are the maker of the MediaLight bias kits. They are on the cusp of officially launching a fix for bias light kits installed on Sony Bravia branded TVs. The issue being, unlike other brands, light kits powered by USB ports on Sony Bravia TVs may not cycle off power when you shut your TV off, and it may intermittently turn the light kit on and off when the TV is shut off. Obviously, not ideal. So owner and operator Jason Rosenfeld has created a solution, and a prototype landed in my hands to try out with my own Sony Bravia TV, where I have a MediaLight kit installed. And I'm happy to report it works. Basically, you plug the kit into the wall, then the TV plugs into the kit, and the kit also plugs into the USB port on your TV, and the bias light kit then plugs into the kit itself. Okay, so it's all pretty much self-contained. It doesn't take up a lot of room. Ultimately, what happens is it senses subtle differences in power draw to the point that it can distinguish between a TV in standby and a TV that's on, and that information is sent to the USB side of the kit, which cycles the lights on and off. And you can see a picture of it right over on our forum. I'll drop a link in the description if you'd like to take a look. It's very functional looking. I've used it for roughly a week, haven't had any problems. It works exactly as intended. As I said, easy to install, no complaints on my end. Now, the kit ships with a power cord that's about 20 inches long. And if you need more length to reach a USB port, maybe on the other side of your TV, like I did, a 1 meter add-on sensor cable is included. So you're given plenty of flexibility during installation. And right now it's looking like pricing will land at $24.95 when bundled with a lighting kit at purchase, or for customers that have proof of purchase from the past. And it will be $39.95 if purchased separately. As for its name, still a work in progress, but my sense is that we're going to be seeing this being sold through biaslighting.com sooner rather than later. Macintosh is back in the news post-acquisition by Bose with its new MSA 5500 streaming integrated amplifier. This is a compact unit that blends the brand's legendary amplification with modern streaming capabilities, supporting platforms like AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, plus high-res Bluetooth 5.0. Its amp section delivers 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms or 160 watts into 4 ohm loads, with access to HDMI audio return channel, meaning you can dump audio from your TV to the streamer. It also has a phono input and multiple analog and digital inputs. Under the hood, a quad-balanced 8-channel DAC hones sound quality, while Macintosh's proprietary tech like PowerGuard and Sentry Monitor add reliability and they say longevity too. The internal amp can be bypassed, allowing it to operate as a preamp and a streamer, so it can grow with your system as it evolves. Of course, it also has Macintosh's signature blue meters and that robust build quality that we all love with Macintosh products. The price is also robust. $8K, that's what you're going to have to pay for this one. It's available right now through authorized dealers. Apple is reportedly diving deeper into smart home technology with the development of Home OS. It's an operating system designed to anchor its future smart home ecosystem. Rumblings about Home OS began back in 2021. There were a couple leaks there, and it was referenced in the beta versions of tvOS earlier this year, and it now appears Home OS will debut alongside a brand new HomePod featuring a built-in screen sometime next year. Probably, it looks like maybe during Q3. Reports are suggesting the HomePod will carry a 6 to 7 inch display mounted on a stand, something reminiscent of Apple's iconic iMac G4 design. That's something you're going to have to look up because I'm not going to be able to describe it to you other than it looks like a display on a stand. It will likely be powered by Apple's A18 processor. It will support apps like Apple TV, run Apple Intelligence features, and integrate seamlessly with smart home devices. Bloomberg is reporting on this, and they say that this should be a relatively affordable device that will pave the way for a broader suite of smart home products, including AI companions with robotic arms. Well, that's really interesting. Privacy-focused home cameras, and even a potential Apple branded TV, which is something that we talked about a few episodes ago. As I said, set to launch in Q3 of 2025, this HomePod marks Apple's first major step into redefining smart home tech. If it takes off, it could signal a turning point for Apple's presence in connected living spaces. And last but not least, Amazon is making waves with its first ever mini LED TVs. The Fire TV Omni Mini LED series is available now in 4 sizes, ranging from 55 inches to 85 inches. Pricing on these sets isn't rock bottom, but I would say it's competitive. The lineup starts at $820 for the 55-inch model and $2,100 for the 85-inch flagship. So I would say it's more or less positioned to compete with mid-tier competitors like Hisense and TCL. The Omni Media LED series brings 1,400 nits of peak brightness and 1,344 local dimming zones, promising improved backlighting control and vibrant visuals. Sounds pretty tasty. I'm sure it probably looks fairly good also. New features like Amazon's Intelligence Picture technology, which uses AI to adjust colors, detail, and lighting in real time, will be featured on the TV. Pair that with support for Dolby Vision IQ, HDR10+, adaptive, and 144 hertz refresh rates, and this TV series is, they say, ready to deliver on both cinematic and gaming fronts. Now, like all Fire TVs, the Omni Media LED integrates Alexa voice control and supports Fire TV ambient experiences, such as transforming idle screens into dynamic displays of art or photos. And I watched a little video of this. It looks pretty cool. Almost like Samsung's Frame TV, but the art is actually moving and following this guy who is standing in front of the screen and moving around. So pretty cool. Plus, it offers support for audio streaming for hearing aids or ASHA, making it accessible for a wide range of users. Very interesting move to see Amazon moving into a higher quality LCD TV technology. For more industry news, visit our forum's homepage over at avnirvana.com. All right, it's time to check in with AV Nirvana disc critic extraordinaire Michael Scott to see what he's been up to. And the machine that is Mike, he just continues to pump out great content, great reviews, making sure that you're making wise choices when it comes time to adding things to your collection. Over the last 2 weeks, he's published a total heap of 4K Blu-ray reviews, including North by Northwest, The Terminator, Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In, Silent Night, Deadly Night, the Collector's Edition, Pulp Fiction, 30th Anniversary, Hush, the Collector's Edition, Alfred Hitchcock, the Iconic Collection, Interstellar, the 10th Anniversary Collector Edition. And I have to say, Interstellar is definitely in my top 5 movies of all time. I just love that film, despite it being long, because I typically like watching short films, but Interstellar is just total top shelf stuff for me. Rock and Roll High School is also included in his 4K review list. And on the Blu-ray front, he reviewed Reagan and The Forge. You can see all of his reviews, over 2,000 of them, over in a forum section on our forum at avnirvana.com. A link to that section is down in the show notes. New to disc this week, we've got a strong lineup of catalog titles headlined by another one of my favorite movies. I think this one is also, I don't know if it's in my top 5, but it is in my top 10. That top 5 is pretty tight. It's tough. I've got Caddyshack, The Right Stuff, and Interstellar. Those are squarely in my top 5. No Country for Old Men could possibly be in that top 5. So that is a new release this week by Criterion. They're delivering this Coen Brothers classic in 4K with Dolby Vision and DTS HD MA 5.1 audio, supervised by legendary cinematographer Roger Deakins. This one is packed with extras like conversation with the Coens and cast interviews, plus legacy featurettes. Look, if you love this movie, this is a must own. And I think I'm actually going to go out and pick this one up. Even though I already own it on both Kaleidoscape and disc, I think this is one that I'd like to have. For fantasy lovers, Disney and Lucasfilm are bringing Willow to 4K in steelbook fashion. This beloved 1988 adventure gets the Dolby Vision treatment and includes legacy extras like a making of documentary and deleted scenes. This one is a nostalgic gem for fans of epic 80s escapism. Criterion is also treating us to 8.5. That's Federico Fellini's surreal classic in a gorgeous 4K UHD edition with LPCM mono audio and a stack of extras like archival interviews, commentary by film critics. This release is perfect for cinephiles out there who appreciate groundbreaking art house cinema. Animation fans are in for a treat with Wallace and Gromit, the complete cracking collection on 4K UHD featuring all of their iconic short films, plus The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This collection is just locked and loaded with extras like commentaries, making of featurettes, and even blueprints for Wallace's quirky inventions. And horror fans, don't miss out on Silent Night, Deadly Night. That's from Shout Factory. This is obviously a cult classic slasher flick. It's arriving in 4K with Dolby Vision and DTS HDMA mono audio. It's loaded up with extras like interviews, commentary tracks, and a behind-the-scenes featurette. Just perfect for the holiday season, right? Only if you like your Christmas to be a little bit on the darker side. Now, on the heels of a massive Black Friday event that just tortured my wallet, but in a good way, Kaleidoscape has posted Venom, The Last Dance. That is still in theaters, up for purchase and download. A24's Heretic is also for sale. That too, right now, is in theaters, but you can buy that and download it and watch it right now on Kaleidoscape. I also just talked about Willow being released on disc. That too is landing on Kaleidoscape in 4K, along with The Day After Tomorrow, The Terminator, Galaxy Quest, and Murder on the Orient Express. And if you're looking for deals on the Kaleidoscape system, a bunch of winter favorites are up for sale. We're talking about Elf and Home Alone, Christmas Vacation, even the rom-com Love Actually. There's tons of titles, and most of them are in 4K and are landing in that $9.99 to $14.99 price range. So definitely go and check it out. Now to take a quick peek at disc sales. When we last looked, DVD was sitting at 63% of the market. Well, that's fallen a little bit right now. Our most recent numbers have DVD sitting at 51.2%, Blu-ray up to nearly 30%, and 4K UHD is accounting right now for about 20% of sales. And let's give the disc sales charts just a quick look. Again, dominated by blockbuster releases. We have Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Godzilla -1 sitting at the number 1, 2, and 3 spots for both 4K discs and Blu-rays. Dune Part 2 is sitting at number 4 on both charts, and that's where we have a little divergence. Despicable Me 4 is sitting at number 5 in the Blu-ray disc chart, followed by Reagan and Twisters. And over on the 4K charts, we have The Batman sitting at number 5, which is interesting. The Lord of the Rings, the motion picture trilogy, is at number 6, and I'm wondering if that's because of Black Friday sales. We have The Shape of Water at number 7 in 4K discs, and at number 8, Harry Potter, the complete 8-film collection, which was one of our picks of the week. I wonder, did HTNR push Harry Potter into the top 10 of 4K discs? Highly doubt it, but it would be nice to think so. But anyway, it looks like some people are out there taking advantage of Black Friday sales. Now, in terms of streaming, didn't have access to my streaming data. Just Watch changed the terms of access to their data, and my permissions have not been reestablished. So I have reached out to them to get that fixed. They just didn't get back to me before I recorded this show. So hopefully that will be resolved very, very soon. All right, it's that time of the show where we dig through some deals that you should definitely go and check out. And we're going to start off with the complete Rankin Bass Christmas collection. You know these titles. They are the various Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman titles that are done with claymation. They're old, iconic shows. You can no longer watch these on demand, and they typically are not shown for free on TV anymore. They are available for purchase on streaming platforms, but why not just go out and buy the disc? Right now, you can get them on Blu-ray, 15% off for just $49.99. Then you can watch them whenever you want. Our next film, The Family Man. I think this one is highly underrated. I actually like this movie a lot. It's available right now on Blu-ray for just $9.99. That's one that should be in your collection. And last but not least, a total winter classic, Will Ferrell as Elf. This one right now is available in 4K. 60% off for just $14.99. I'll drop links to all 3 of those movies right down in the description. And now for our gear deal of the week. And I think this is a really good one. I present to you the Pioneer VSX 835 AVR. This is a 7.2 channel receiver. It's Atmos capable. It carries IMAX enhanced compatibility with DTS-X. No Auro 3D, unfortunately, but it's a sacrifice you're going to have to make. You also have access to 4 HDMI ports that they carry HDMI 2.1 compatibility. In terms of power, we're talking about 80 watts per channel, 2 channels driven. That's with Class AB amplification. So you're getting enough muscle to drive a decent range of speakers. I would not shy away from that number. I think that's a very healthy amp section. Normally, this receiver is going to run you $500, but you can score it right now for just $349. That's 30% off. And that pricing is in your wheelhouse. I would say pull the trigger and strike right now. That, my friends, is a super good deal. I'll drop a link to that right down in the show notes. All right, folks, that's all I've got for you on this episode of HTNR. Many thanks to this episode's sponsor, Texas Hi-Fi. As I said earlier in the show, this may be the last episode of HTNR this year. We'll see how things shake out, but I do think I'm going to take a little breather and jump back in as New Year swings into full action. If that's the case, happy holidays. I hope you have a fantastic new year, and definitely come hang out with us on the forum at avnirvana.com.